The first time I saw her, she was giving away her lunch to a homeless man outside the subway station, and I remember thinking how foolish that was, how naive, how dangerously kind in a city that chewed up kindness and spit it out like yesterday's gum on hot pavement. But I was wrong about her, dead wrong. And by the time I realized it, she had already changed everything, and not just for me, but for an entire community that had forgotten what it meant to see each other as human beings. I worked at Morrison Fletcher, a mid-sized accounting firm in downtown Chicago, where the coffee was always lukewarm and the conversations even colder. We operated in silos, headphones on, eyes down, counting other people's money while our own souls went bankrupt. I'd been there for 7 years, and I could count on one hand the number of meaningful conversations I'd had with my coworkers. That's just how it was. That's how we all accepted it to be. Then she arrived on a Tuesday in March, when the winter was finally loosening its grip and the city was beginning to remember what warmth felt like. Her name was Elena Martinez, and she was assigned to the cubicle next to mine. She had kind eyes, the sort that actually focused when she looked at you, and a smile that seemed to come from some inexhaustible reservoir of goodwill. Within a week, she knew everyone's name. Within 2, she knew their stories. I watched her with the cynicism of someone who'd lived in the city too long. She brought in homemade cookies and left them in the break room with little handwritten notes. She asked the custodian about his daughter's graduation. She remembered that Janet from payroll was allergic to peanuts and always brought alternative snacks to meetings. It was exhausting just watching her be so relentlessly, impossibly kind. "Doesn't it tire you out?" I asked her one afternoon, unable to contain my curiosity any longer. She looked up from her desk, genuinely puzzled. "What do you mean?" "All of it. The caring, the remembering, the trying." I gestured vaguely at the office around us. "Nobody really cares, you know. We're all just here to collect a paycheck." Elena tilted her head, studying me with those searching eyes. "Is that really what you believe, Marcus?" The way she said my name like it mattered, like I mattered, caught me off guard. I'd been Marcus, senior accountant, for so long that I'd almost forgotten I was also just Marcus, a human being with hopes and fears and a mother in Cleveland I hadn't called in 3 weeks. "I believe in what I can see," I said, defensive. "And what I see is a bunch of people who pretend to care during work hours and forget each other exist the moment they clock out." She smiled, but there was something sad in it. "Then I guess I'll have to change what you can see." I didn't know what she meant then. I thought it was just another platitude, another thing people said but didn't mean. But Elena meant everything she said, and she had a way of making the impossible seem not just possible, but inevitable. It started small. She organized a birthday celebration for Roger in IT, a guy who'd worked there for 15 years and never once had anyone acknowledge his birthday. She brought in a cake, got people to sign a card, and for 10 minutes, Roger stood in the break room looking like someone had handed him the moon. I saw tears in his eyes, and something in my chest constricted uncomfortably. Then she started a kindness board in the break room where people could post notes of appreciation for each other. I rolled my eyes when I first saw it, certain it would remain empty except for Elena's own contributions. But slowly, impossibly, notes began appearing. "Thank you, Sarah, for helping me with that Excel formula. Jim, your joke this morning made my day. Appreciate you, Marcus, for catching the terror in the Johnson account." That last one surprised me. I hadn't even known anyone noticed the work I did, let alone appreciated it. But the real change came on a Thursday afternoon in late April. Elena didn't show up to work, which was unusual because she was never late, never absent. By noon, whispers were circulating. By 2 o'clock, we knew the truth. Elena had been diagnosed with advanced ovarian cancer, stage 4. The doctors were giving her 6 months, maybe less. The office fell into a stunned silence. It felt cosmically unfair that someone like Elena, someone who radiated goodness like sunlight, could be struck down by something so cruel. I sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen without seeing it, feeling a grief I hadn't experienced since my father died. She came back to work 2 weeks later, thinner, paler, but still smiling. "I'm not gone yet," she said when I stammered something awkward about being sorry. "And I don't intend to waste whatever time I have left." She didn't. If anything, she doubled down on her kindness. She organized a weekend volunteer program at the local food bank. She started a fundraiser for Janet's son who needed surgery. She somehow convinced management to implement Mental Health Fridays where we could leave an hour early to take care of ourselves. She was dying, and she was spending her final days trying to make sure the rest of us learned how to live. I started joining her initiatives, at first out of guilt, then out of something else I couldn't quite name. We spent Saturday mornings at the food bank, sorting canned goods and packing boxes for families in need. We delivered meals to homebound seniors. We cleaned up the small park near our office that had been neglected for years. "Why are you really doing all this?" I asked her one Saturday as we planted flowers in the park. "You could be traveling, seeing the world, doing everything you've always wanted to do." Elena pressed soil around a marigold, her movements careful and deliberate. "This is what I've always wanted to do, Marcus. Make things a little better, help people see that we're all connected, that we all matter." She looked up at me, and the setting sun caught her face in golden light. "When I'm gone, I want to leave ripples, not emptiness. I want people to remember that kindness isn't weakness, it's the bravest thing we can do." Her words stayed with me, burrowing into the hard shell I'd built around myself over the years. The months passed too quickly. Elena grew weaker, but her spirit never dimmed. The office had transformed completely. People lingered in the break room, actually talking to each other. They brought in lunches to share. They asked about each other's families, their dreams, their struggles. The kindness board was so full we had to add a second one. We'd become a community, and Elena had been the catalyst. On a grey morning in October, Elena didn't come to work. This time, we all knew what it meant. I visited her at the hospice center that evening. She was in bed, surrounded by flowers and cards from what seemed like half the city. She opened her eyes when I sat down, and somehow, even then, she managed to smile. "Hey, Marcus," she whispered. "Hey," I said, my voice breaking. "I just wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For showing me that I was wrong. About people. About kindness. About what matters." I took her hand, so small and frail now. "You changed me, Elena. You changed all of us." She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "No," she said softly, "I just reminded you of who you already were. Who we all are. Underneath the fear and the armor. You did the changing yourself." She died 3 days later, on a Sunday morning when the leaves were just beginning to turn and the air held that particular crispness that promises both endings and beginnings. The funeral was packed. Not just people from the office, but the homeless man from the subway station, the custodian and his daughter, families from the food bank, seniors we delivered meals to, neighbors from the park, hundreds of people whose lives she touched in ways large and small. But Elena's real legacy wasn't in that crowd or in the tears we shed. It was in what happened after. We kept going. Every Saturday, rain or shine, a group from the office met at the food bank. We maintained the park, adding more flowers each spring. We celebrated birthdays and milestones. We showed up for each other in ways we never had before. The kindness board remained, constantly full of notes of appreciation and support. I called my mother every Sunday. I learned the names of my neighbors. I started really seeing the people around me not as obstacles or inconveniences, but as fellow humans trying their best to navigate this complicated, beautiful, heartbreaking world. 6 months after Elena died, I found myself at the subway station where I'd first seen her. A young woman was sitting on the ground, holding a sign asking for help. Without thinking, I bought an extra sandwich and coffee and handed them to her. "Thank you," she said, looking up at me with surprised eyes. "You don't know how much this means." I smiled, feeling Elena's presence in that moment like a warm hand on my shoulder. "Actually," I said, "I think I do." As I walked away, I saw a businessman stop and hand the woman some cash. Then a teenager sat down and talked to her for a few minutes. Ripples, I thought. Elena's ripples, spreading outward in ways she would never know but had somehow always trusted would happen. She taught us that kindness isn't a finite resource that depletes with use, it's a muscle that grows stronger with exercise. She showed us that one person, armed with nothing but compassion and determination, can transform an entire community. She proved that the smallest acts of humanity can echo far beyond our understanding. I think of her every day, this woman who gave away her lunch to a stranger and, in doing so, began feeding the souls of everyone around her. Her name was Elena Martinez, and she was remarkable not because she was extraordinary, but because she had the courage to be ordinarily kind in a world that had forgotten the revolutionary power of simple human decency. And every time I choose kindness over convenience, connection over isolation, love over fear, I know that she's still here, still making ripples, still reminding us all of the most important truth she ever taught. We are not meant to go through this life alone. And the greatest gift we can give each other is the gift of being seen, valued, and loved. Her legacy lives in every act of kindness we choose. In every moment we see each other as humans rather than strangers. In every time we decide that compassion matters more than comfort. She was just one person, but she changed everything. And now it's our turn to do the same.